Hey there, I'm Komori. If you're as much of a nerd as I am about Pokemon, then you know that there are some that just aren't up to par with the popular picks. In terms of capabilities in battle, let's just say some Pokemon are better off sticking in your PC than taking up a party slot. These Pokemon are all non-evolving, low base stat total, and sometimes with questionable movesets. These Pokemon really got the short end of the stick. And today, I wanted to revisit some of these subpar Pokemon and give them new evolutions to make them a great team member, and less like a forgotten side character. Before we jump into the video, make sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you want to support my channel. I would really appreciate it, and it lets me know whether I should make more videos like these in the future. But without further ado, here's my take for if bad Pokemon got new evolutions. The very first Pokemon that came to mind when making this video was a certain icy avian Pokemon. Delibird, an ice and flying type introduced in Pokemon Gold and Silver. With an unfortunately bad typing and below average stats, Delibird struggles in any kind of competitive scene. It only gets 2 resistances and has 4 weaknesses, one of them being a quadruple weakness to rock. Its base stat total of 330 is comparable to a few Pokemon, such as Weasel, Zorua, and Chinchou, all of which actually have evolutions. And worst part of all, do you want to know how many moves Delibird learns by level up? That's right, it's a grand total of 2! So yeah, Game Freak hasn't been the nicest to our favorite holiday bird, but I'm here to provide a concept for a potential evolution Delibird could have gotten. Also, let's just pretend Iron Bundle doesn't exist for the moment. It really doesn't count as evolution, it's more of a reboot. Reboot, because it's a robot. Sorry, back on track. When I was thinking of this design, the only thing I could imagine was a large, jolly bird with big eyebrows and an even fluffier beard. What I had learned is that Delibird is actually based on rockhopper penguins, and these guys inspired Delibird to have those big, bushy eyebrows. I wanted to keep it as close resemblance to Delibird, while also adding some small differences to its design. Throughout the drawing process, I wanted Delibird's evolution to have a cheery, wise vibe to it. Kind of like a particular jolly man it's based on. That might have inspired the hat-like feathers it has on its head, along with the stripe on its belly resembling a belt. I gave it a bushy tail, but I later scrapped that idea. That's because Delibird actually has a tail? Its tail is literally the bag it's holding. I'm not kidding. I almost didn't believe it. But I had to check some behind sprites, and lo and behold, the bag is actually its tail. So, no more bushy tail. Apologies, folks. And with that, here is Delibird's evolution, Panguiver. From the words penguin and deliver. I could imagine Panguiver as a bulky physical attacker. It could have moves like Ice Hammer, Pluck, or even Vital Throw for some type coverage. For the evolution method, let's make it a funny one. You have to deal damage with the move present 12 times before Delibird evolves. Eh? For the 12 days of Christmas? Alright, let's move on now before I embarrass myself more. For the next Pokemon on our list of underachievers, this one shouldn't come as much of a surprise to you. Yep, it's Spinda, the spotty panda with over 4 billion possible patterns. Unfortunately, Spinda hasn't gotten a whole lot of recognition from Big Mr. Game Freak. In fact, it was one of the Pokemon that got cut from the Pokédex when Sword and Shield came out. But, wait a minute, I'm getting off topic. What exactly makes Spinda so bad? Well, when you have 60 in all of your base stats, it's the quickest way to make a Pokemon bad at, well, everything. It's also a pure normal type, which means it will never deal any super effective stab moves. And finally, well, it's Spinda. It doesn't have much else going for it. So let's give it an evolution. For this design, I wasn't sure how to incorporate Spinda's gimmick of its patterns. Forgive my lack of creativeness, but I decided that all the spots would just become one large spot on its face. I know, it's boring, but I couldn't decide how to include it without it feeling a little out of place. For the main premise of this design, I felt like Spinda needed a secondary type to help it out. So why not make it normal fighting type? It fits the vibe, and Spinda actually learns a handful of fighting type moves, like Brick Break or Focus Punch. I gave it large paws resembling boxing gloves, and a ring of thick fur around its neck to protect it from fatal attacks. I kept the iconic swirly eyes and ears, making sure it closer resembles its pre-evolution. I love Spinda's stubby legs, but decided that it needed a stronger stance in order to actually be good in battle. And with that, here is Spinda's evolution, Pan Pummel, from the words panda and pummel. Pan Pummel could be a physical attacker with high defenses, but average in speed. It could learn the elemental punches like Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Thunder Punch, making it a bigger threat to more types. I'd even go as far as to give it the Iron Fist ability to boost those punching moves even further. For the evolution method, I have the perfect one. Spinda evolves into Pan Pummel, leveling up while knowing the move Dizzy Punch. Unfortunately, Dizzy Punch isn't a move anymore as of Scarlet and Violet, but in my opinion, I'd bring it back as Spinda's signature move. I mean, it's literally Spinda's whole thing to be dizzy. And with that, let's move on to the last Pokemon of the video. I saved this one for last because it's one of the most infamous, underwhelming Pokemon. Luvdisc. You all saw this one coming. With some of the worst base stats of any fully evolved Pokemon, a pure water type and a heavily saturated pool of options, and barely any ways to use this Pokemon effectively, it's safe to say Luvdisc is one of the worst fully evolved Pokemon. In fact, the only reason you would acknowledge Luvdisc's existence is not for the Pokemon itself, but for its held item, the Heart Scale, so that you could go to the move reminder. This Pokemon is desperately needing some kind of evolution to help it out, so let's design one. For this Pokemon, I knew that I wanted to make the heart theme more obvious in its design. A Luvdisc evolution is difficult to make unique because there's so many fish Pokemon already in the game, but I think I did a good job setting it apart from other water types. Pokemon like Lumineon and Gorbis could be close resemblances to this design, but I'd like to think that this Pokemon is closely related to those two. I also wanted to give Luvdisc a secondary type in its evolution to make it stand out from all the other water types, and the choice was pretty obvious. The fairy type is heavily referenced towards love and affection, something that Luvdisc is literally designed around. I'm honestly surprised Luvdisc didn't get the fairy type originally, like how Gardevoir or Jigglypuff got the type in Gen 6. I added more fins and a longer tail, as well as adding some purple into its color palette. One thing I do like about Luvdisc is the cute kissy face it always has, which is inspired from kissing gourami, a type of fish from Southeast Asia that always have the outwards mouths like lips, which is kind of adorable. So I made sure to keep that in this design. And without further ado, here is Adorami, from the words adore and gourami. Adorami are like the cupids of the sea, inspiring nearby people or Pokemon to embrace feelings of love and care. I can imagine Adorami as a special attacker, with high special defense and speed. It could use moves like Moonblast, Draining Kiss, or Hydro Pump. For an ability, I think Swift Swim is still a great option, but I think if you wanted something a little bit more interesting, a possible hidden ability could be Marvel Scale, which kind of acts like Guts, but for defense instead of attack. For the evolution method, do I even need to spell it out? It obviously would be a friendship evolution. It's Luvdisc we're talking about. And that about wraps up all of the new evolutions I designed. Let me know what you think, and whether I should make more videos like these. If there's anything you would change or add to these designs, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. And with that, I want to thank you for watching till the end, and make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's the easiest way to support me and my channel, and so I can keep making content for you guys. Until next time, see you later, bye!